协12届3次会议首场记者会现在开始。今天记者会的主题是
The theme of this press conference is that CPCC members will talk about how to promote new normal and ensure steady, sound economic growth. CPPCC National Committee will focus on building all-round, moderately prosperous society, comprehensively promote rule of law, comprehensively establish rule of law, and ensure its normal functioning. CPPCC members will focus on maintaining notable progress while maintaining stability, adapt to new normal proactively, and ensure steady, sound growth. They will offer their useful suggestions today. It's a great honor to have with us today 7 CPPCC members. They will answer questions from press both at home and abroad. Please allow me to introduce to all of you CPPCC members present here today. First, the standing member of the CPPCC Committee, former Vice Chairman of the China Democratic League, Honorary Dean of Guanghua School of Management, Professor Li Yining. Standing member of CPPCC National Committee, Commissioner of Economic Commission, former Minister of Industry and Information and the Party Secretary, Mr. Li Yizhong. Standing member of the CPPCC National Committee, the Vice Director of Economic Directory and the Office Director, the Head of Office of China Finance and Information, Mr. Chen Xiwen. Standing member of CPPCC National Committee, Vice Director of Economic Commission, Honorary Dean of School of National Development from PKU, Professor Justin Yifu Lin. Member of CPPCC, consultant of CBRC, and former president of ICBC, Mr. Yang Kaisheng. CPPCC member, chairman of Citigroup, Mr. Chang Zhengning. CPPCC member, Financial Policy Institute President, Huaxia New Supply Economics Institute President, Mr. Jia Kang. Now the floor is open. Please identify yourself before raising your questions.
Hào, 谢谢。我是中国国际广播电台记者。我这个问题啊，想提问厉宁委员。是这样的，总理的政府工作报告啊，已经对我国今年经济发展的目标提出了一些具体的数字。大家认为这个困难啊，可能也是不小。在经济新常态下，您认为我国经济发展的这个新的动力和新的引擎是什么？如果经济要实现我们所说的这个持续增效，您这个话需要这些哪里？谢谢您。
In which areas should we make improvements? Thank you. In terms of economic new normal, first of all, I want to say that the new normal has consists of 3 aspects. The first is that China's economic growth has shifted from the past medium to high-speed growth to medium growth. Second, we need to restructure economy. Under the new normal, we need to restructure our economy. We need to upgrade many industries. Thirdly, we need to identify new economic drivers. In the future, we should rely on masses and people's entrepreneurship, innovation activities to drive growth. In other words, the past growth driven by expansion of quantity and investment is unsustainable. In the future, our driving force comes from people's innovation.
请第3排这位女士，是。
我是中国新闻社、中国新闻网的记者。请问林毅夫委员。
My question is for Lin Yifu. You have anticipated that China's economy can still grow for 8% for 20 years. We have noticed that in the report on government's work, the Premier said that the GDP can still grow by 7%. What is your anticipation? And what is the new momentum and the drivers for China's economic growth? Thank you. Thank you for your question. I can have the opportunity to answer your question, and also by way of media, I can clarify a misunderstanding from the media. Your question has two parts. One is whether I have adjusted my anticipation about China's economic growth rate. The second is that under the new normal, the old comparative advantage has been lost, but there is no new growth points. For the first question, I can tell you that I haven't changed my expectation. I think China still has about 20 years of 8% of growth potential, but I must emphasize the word potential. I do not mean that China can still grow at 8% for 20 years, because there is a difference here. And you have also mentioned a hypothesis, which is, I think, China can still enjoy 8% for 20 years. And there is a difference. I think China can still grow at 8% for 20 years. And what is my evidence? I think China's productivity can continue to grow, and the foundation is the upgrading and innovation of technologies. Because it is true in the developed countries, and it is the same in developing countries. We know that for developing countries, its technologies and industries are at the forefront in the world. So the technological innovation and technological upgrading must be invented by themselves, and there are huge risks involved. In the past 100 years, developed countries relied on this mechanism, and its annual growth rate is about 2 to 3%. For developing countries, they also rely on technological upgrading, and is within the international technological upgrading, and it is a late mover advantage. If developing countries know how to utilize this advantage, then their growth rate can double or triple that of the developed countries. And for 30 years in a row, for every year, we have grown by 9% each year. Now 30 years have passed. Do we still enjoy a lot of such advantage? I think one important criteria is that the industrial and technological difference between us and developed countries. How large is this gap? I think we should look at the gap in per capita income, because per capita income represents the average labor productivity of a country, and the average productivity refers to the average industrial level of a country. And I can refer you to the statistics of 2008. In that year, for every individual, according to the purchase power parity, our purchasing power is 21%, which is equivalent to the gap between Japan and the United States in 1950s, and that of Singapore and the United States, and the gap between Singapore and Korea. Those South Asian economies have utilized this late mover advantage to realize a growth period of 5% to 8%. If they can utilize 20 years at this growth rate, then I can say that we can still enjoy a growth rate at 8% for 20 years. Of course, it is mainly dependent on both internal and external factors, because we are still recovering from the 2008 financial crisis and our export dropped. And in this situation, our economic growth rate would decline. And this is the first part of your question. The second part is about, in the past, our economy grew very rapidly, and we are referred to as the world factory. We are mainly reliant on the processing industry, which is at the lower end. And with the improvement of our living conditions and the increase of our wages, now those industries have already lost the competitive edge. Now, do we still have new growth engines? As an economist, you know that comparative advantage comes from comparison. And in the past, the reason why we have this advantage is that we have lower wages and we have a lot of capital. Now, after 30 years of development, in last year, our per capita income has reached $7,500. Now we have abundant capital accumulation. And now I can refer you to 5 areas. First, we can move from the medium to low end to the medium to high end equipment manufacturing industry. And also, like the new electronic material and sophisticated equipment industry. This is the first part. The second part is in the internet sector. For example, internet finance, e-commerce, and express delivery. And the third sector is the new industries. For example, the green industries, environmental protection industries. So we can process those industries and supply those products to low-income countries. After we have exported those products, then we can create a lot of export market. Fourth, now we have a lot of overcapacity, like the industry of steel, cement, and electrolyte aluminum. Now, with the one road, one belt development, there will be a huge market for us. So I believe under the new normal, we can enjoy 8% of growth potential. And Premier Li mentioned that our economy can grow by 7%. I think there is no problem in achieving this target, and actually I think we can do even better than that.
Thank you, Professor Justin Yifulin.
请第一排第3位女士，请。
谢谢，我是来自《经济日报》中国经济网的记者。我想问一下陈希文委员，今年中央银行也提出了加大
Mr. Chen Xiying, the number 1 draft of CPPCC Central Committee calls us to enhance the building of modern agriculture, transformation of agriculture production. What are the priorities of agricultural work this year? And amid the economic slowdown, how can we enhance the fundamental status of agriculture and raise income for farmers? You have mentioned the priority of this year's agricultural work. We should respond to the most acute problems and offer priorities. The most important work is to accelerate transformation of agricultural production, then enhance building modernized agriculture. To be specific, whether in the guideline and the government work report delivered by Premier Li yesterday, we knew quite clearly that we must enhance agriculture, improve farmers' income, and protect rural environment. We have followed the general guidelines made by CPPCC Central Committee. We must enhance comprehensive reform in rural system, providing robust driving forces. In the meantime, we should enhance rural construction and ensure guarantee for these tasks. We want to prioritize transformation of agricultural production because it is consistent with our general policy. On the other hand, it can resolve acute problems facing China's rural areas. As far as I'm concerned, We have improved the grain output for 11 consecutive years, but we are still facing many pressing problems. The first is the rising cost of agricultural production, including land costs, growing costs of agricultural inputs, and purchasing services. So it will raise the prices of grains. And the second problem is that the prices of major commodity prices are above average international level, posing us great pressure. The third is that many people pursue grain output blindly, exerting too much pressure on agricultural resources, taking a heavy toll to environment in rural areas. To resolve these problems, we must adhere to the path of sustainable development and transform the production method of agricultural products. I think there are three methods. The first is that we must establish environmentally friendly and resource-saving agriculture. We shouldn't pursue agricultural production at the expense of our benefits of our spring. Second is to enhance agricultural production and bring more benefits to rural areas. Third, we should improve the system through reform and innovation. Innovative agricultural system can be more robust and vital. We have arranged specifically for these tasks. As to the backdrop of slowdown and how to enhance input to agriculture, Premier Li mentioned clearly in his government report yesterday, we will enhance our input, financial input to agriculture, whatever our financial landscape. As a matter of fact, last year our financial input has slowed down, but on a quantity base, it has increased by over 1 trillion yuan compared with last year. So we can afford agricultural investment. We should also rely on reform innovation, technological innovation, and other specific measures to raise farmers' income. In terms of structure, we know that 40% of farmers' income comes from their household production, and only 25% of their income from crop plantation, and 10% are from farmers' salary, and 10% from those financial transfers. We should rely on various channels to raise farmers' income. In addition, we should also rely more on the driving from industrialization, urbanization, giving more opportunities for employment to those farmers, thus raising their income. The central guideline and the government work reports have offered clearly guidelines under the new normal to raise farmers' income, and we have a large opportunity to raise farmers' income and ensure agricultural foundation.
Thank you. With CCTV and CNTV, my question is for Mr. Li Yizhong. Recently, some people say that currently China's industrial development is being marginalized. This is a very dangerous situation, and my question is, for China to basically realize industrialization and build a comprehensively modern society, what will be the impacts for that? Thank you for your question. Speaking of industry, in 2020, to basically realize industrialization, this is a very important mission for the building of a moderately prosperous society. This is also a pillar for that task and improvement of people's living conditions. And I think what you said does exist. First of all, because we are influenced by some Western economies and some deficiencies in our work. For some period, there is such a problem. For example, our capital has been transferred and factors of production has been lost, and there's been a brain outflow, and deficiencies of enterprises is not high enough. Such a phenomenon has attracted the attention from the CPC Central Committee, and a few years ago they have made the decision to vigorously support the development of the real economy. Recently we have seen that in terms of finance, fiscal sector and the industrial policies, the central government has adopted many policies to support SMEs. Now the phenomenon has been relieved, and we have seen some positive progress. I've noticed that Premier Li, in his report on government's work, have touched upon the real economy in 3 areas. He stressed that the finance should serve for the real economy. So I think the problem can be improved. In terms of the marginalization problem, first of all, the size of industry is large enough, and in last year the value added is 22.8 trillion yuan. But at the same time, there is still structural problems and deep-seated problems. Those problems must be solved. Therefore, our industries must witness improved quality, and they must be transformed and upgraded. So we have taken some measures to phase out backward capacity and relocate some industries. And those measures is actually directed at the readjustment of industrial patterns. We should not interpret it as the weakening of industries. And I think that the second industries have provided high-quality products for the development of tertiary industries, and they have also provided the objectives for their services. So the secondary industry is the precondition and foundation for the tertiary industry, and the two are not mutually exclusive. Their mutual relationship must be well handled. As in terms of the biological civilization, the industrial sector accounts for 70% of the whole energy consumption, so we should continue to conserve energy and reduce pollution, protect the environment, so as to pay off our debts and do a good job in this area. But we should not neglect our attention in industries, and we should avoid the marginalization of industries, because this is to neglect the basic conditions of China. I have reviewed the work, the report on government's work, and I've noticed that Premier Li has devoted a whole paragraph into China's manufacturing, especially the manufacturing in 2025. So this has reflected the importance attached to industries by the State Council and the manufacturing industry, because this is a historical process, and many European countries and America has taken hundreds of years to finish this process. And in 2020, we can basically realize industrialization. And so at that time, the dominant role of this industry can be fully leveraged. We need to develop the 4 processes at the same time, and the 2 centennial goal must be achieved. So this report has made it a more urgent task. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Li Zhong.
这位女士。
谢谢主持人，我是香港商报的记者。我想问一下那个杨凯生团长，就是在经济的新常态下，觉得说金融
Under the new normal, do you think whether we'll face growing financial risks, and many people quite concerned the possibility of another financial crisis outbreak? You are a consultant with CPRC, so what do you think are major challenges facing banking industry? Do you think the popular internet banking should be regulated, and the conventional banks are facing what kind of challenges? Thank you for your question. I know that many friends coming from press and scholars and other friends are caring a lot about China's banking industry. Under the new normal, they think facing the growing downside risks, And they are quite concerned about the financial risks concerning China's banks and whether it is possible to witness another financial crisis. And as far as I'm concerned, China's economic development mode will be transformed and upgraded. We will continue to restructure our economy. China's growth rates will shift from the past speedy growth to medium to high-speed growth. Under such circumstances, some businesses will face difficulties. For example, they find it difficult to meet market demands and even withdraw with the market. For these businesses, obviously, they will lose their capacity to pay their debt. For banks, they are debtors. For businesses, when they are less capable of paying debt to banks, the banks will face a huge pressure to receive those both principal and interest. They will face much pressure for NPLs. In this respect, some worries are understandable. In 2014, the NPL of Chinese banks has grew by around 250 billion yuan. This is a quite large number, but this is based on total loans of 86 trillion yuan of total loan supply. At the end of last year, the ratio of NPL is merely 1.25%. It's not as high. It has increased compared with year before last year. At that time, the ratio was 1.03%, and now it's 1.25%. I want to offer another number. A famous magazine about banks from Britain evaluated and analyzed and ranked the asset quality of 30 global banks. They excluded Chinese banks from those 30 banks, and over 20 foreign banks had NPL an average of 3.96%, and the ratio of a very famous bank even ranked first. Its NPL ratio was above 5%. So compared with our peers and international counterparts, China's NPL ratio is still very low. We still have a sound asset quality. This is my first point. You also quite worry about the future development directions. How about next? This year, economy facing huge downward pressure, even larger pressure compared with last year. Now we need to see whether banks are capable of removing and resisting risks from NPL. Now the provision ratio to NPL is 223%. For everyone that the banks have provided 200 yuan, which means these provisions can help resist those risks. The provision ratio of Chinese banks is consistent with the Basel Accord. NPL, the provision ratio stands at 13.18%. It is consistent with average level, and the core capital accounted for over 10% in total adequate capital, which tops the world. So the NPL ratio indeed has grown, but given the total quantity of loans, the NPL ratio is still very low, and they have a strong capacity to shield the future risks under such circumstances. I think there's no need to worry about Chinese banks. Of course, the second question is about Internet banks' challenges towards the conventional banks. When it comes to Internet finance, in his government report, Premier Li stated this problem. He used the word "new start" to refer to those Internet banks, and he stated to promote sound development of Internet finance. I think this is a case in point. We need to promote Internet finance, and we expect and hope the sound development of Internet finance. So whether the commercial banks can choose to operate through Internet, and the Internet companies can enter field sectors through Internet. In terms of controlling risks and knowing more about finance, Internet finance can enjoy rapid growth under regulation. I'm very delighted to see that thanks to recent years' development, where the regulators, banks, and Internet companies and other social public have a better understanding and comprehensive understanding. They are more rational towards Internet finance. This is the important guarantee for the next phase of its development. Commercial banks will ride upon tidal waves, adapt to this new situation. The e-commerce platform, the chain between information and liaison platform between clients and information, and credit supply by commercial banks through Internet are making notable progress. That's all. Thank you.
中区第4排第2位男士，请。
各位好，我是新华社记者，提问一下。
With Xinhua News Agency, my question is for Mr. Chang Zhenming. Now, the reform of SOE is a priority of the report on the government's work, but currently there's a lot of views discussing the SOE. For example, the efficiency is low. What is your comment on that? And how to deepen the reform of SOE this year? Thank you. Thank you for your question. This question is actually a big one, because I work in an SOE, so I cannot associate low efficiency with SOE. For example, in 2003, the number of our top 500 corporations in China is 11, and in 2014, it grew to 92 SOEs. So this is a very important reflection of our international edge. And when we evaluate efficiency, except economic performance, we should also take into consideration social performance. For example, the high-speed rail, oil, telecommunication, and the Beidou GPS, and large-scale infrastructure building. All of those are major investment projects with large social impacts, and they will take a long time for return to show. Those projects need SOEs to perform. So SOEs are performing an irreplaceable role in our national economy. And in this market and in the deepening of our reform, I think SOEs and private enterprises will have a natural division of labor, and in some sectors they are suitable for SOEs and others are suitable for private enterprises. The second thing is that we need to make SOEs stronger and bigger. And I think this is determined by China's national conditions, because 36 years ago, in the initial stages of reform and opening up, at that time when we talked about enterprises, all of them are SOEs. So this is very different from that of Western countries. The dream of China's enterprises are SOEs, but now our domestic enterprises are registered according to the corporate law, and when they are being registered, they are not divided into state-owned enterprises or other enterprises. So my definition for SOE is that this enterprise, if the enterprise is managed and supervised by the state asset department, then this is an SOE. And there are two problems about SOE. One is its own management. Second is its mechanism and systems. In terms of its own management, I think the key is to establish a really effective corporate governance structure. And we should also follow the requirements of the country. And we need to follow the requirements of the Discipline Commission of the CPPCC Central Committee. And we need to establish a transparent performance evaluation system. The second aspect is the problems brought by the systems and mechanisms. And those problems need to be resolved through the deepening of reform. And I think the reform of SOEs are divided into three parts. The first is the separation between the enterprise and the administration. I think the country should mainly control the capital instead of the asset. We know that the capital, we know that the asset belongs to the legal person of the corporation. So the corporation would enjoy an independent market position, and the country can exercise the right to control the corporation. And yesterday, Premier Li has mentioned that we need to accurately define the different functions of different enterprises and reform them categorically. We know that SOEs are very different, and we need to define their functions. My understanding is that we need to clarify the function of public good enterprises, and they should focus more on social interests, and competitive and commercial SOEs should focus more on their economic profitability, and according to their different division of labor, they should have different system of performance evaluation. And competitive SOEs need to strictly abide by the mechanism of the market, and the government could also optimize the allocation of state-owned capital. The third is that we need to explore the potential of different kinds of capital and their vitality, and promote the development of the mixed ownership economy. And we need to set in place the incentive system and the market value of enterprises. We need to try to improve the efficiency of SOEs as much as possible. And those are the three major areas of the deepening of reform of SOEs. I believe that through the reform of SOEs, the global competitiveness of those SOEs can be further strengthened, and their vitality and momentum can be further unleashed.
Thank you.
第四排，对，这位男士，谢谢。是的。
谢谢主持人。
Thank you.
我是人民日报、人民网和人民日报客户端的
People Daily, Peoples.com. My question is for Mr. Jia Kang. We know that we have released many reform measures in taxation, and these measures have contributed a lot to economic growth and social progress. What do you think are major priorities for future taxation reform, and what are major difficulties? Thank you for your question. The taxation reform is an important component of our comprehensive reform. And after the decision made in 18th CPPCC National Congress, the taxation and fiscal reform was firstly approved by Political Bureau. It's a big first step. The taxation reforms aim to modernizing national governance It's a pillar of comprehensive reform. It's the great role played by taxation reform is still unfolding. According to our information, we have followed a quite clear path in our reform. We are facing three tasks. First, budget reform. It is very comprehensive and complicated. I will offer some highlights in terms of budget reform. We will make it more transparent and more open. Improved transparency can allow people's rights to know, allow the public to oversee and offer suggestions. This is a reflection of our total democratic democracy building. We also need to ensure completeness of budget. All expenditure should be included in budget. This is a clear principle. And the budget system should develop in a proper form, which includes capital social security budget and the budget from the land rent. These four budgets are independent, but they form a clear system. The reform of the budget system also includes a medium-term plan. We ensure the 3-year rolling budget so that we can be both realistic and ambitious, improve the science of budget, but also introduce some new technologies. Ensure the building of balance sheets by various levels of government. Another important component is while making budget, we will cancel the so-called connection between budget and some economic indicators. We still regard agricultural science, technology, and moral ethic education as priorities, but these achievements are not connected with the budget. We will ensure scientific planning, and in terms of transfer payments, we will enhance and improve institutional building. We have set specific arrangements, enhance the proportion of common transfer payments, and reduce the specific transfer payments. We will not force the local governments to make false information. Another important part of reform is to remove local debt. How to offer more channels for local government to raise funds is an important focus. In this year's budget, we will make local debt more transparent. In the past, the local debt and existing debt burden will be digested, and we will replace the large part of existing debt burden by some proper low-cost debt. We will also ensure regulated and scientific implementation, accelerated implementation, and make more tax incentives. The second reform measure focuses on taxation, which attracts wide attention. We have released 6 taxation reform measures. First is the transformation from business to VAT, and in other areas we will also implement these reform measures. So, in other areas, we will encourage more business to compete on a level playing field, and enhance structural reform and upgrade China's economy. Another taxation reform measure has initiated in next December 1st. This reform is focused on the coal industry. In next, it will face more market demand and give another revenue channel for local governments. This reform will also enhance coverage. The third reform measure is on consumption tax. Consumption tax will be more transparent, upgraded, and so that consumption tax can help local governments finance. In addition, the draft also states to enhance the legislation in terms of property market, legislation in the environmental protection, and the reform of environment tax. We will establish law first and attracts public participation. And there is also reform on individual income tax. In this area, we will accelerate research. We should revise the law of individual income tax. The third area is about how to smooth the power relations between central and the local governments, and how to devise the taxation revenue so that it can match China's economic system. This is also another priority, and we need to smooth the institutional distribution, such as the rights to investment. How can we define the investment rights? Some scholars said the local governments should withdraw from the ordinary sectors. And the second is the power relations. These are major areas of taxation reform. Thank you.
请第一排这位女士。
谢谢主持人，我是广东广播电视台的记者。
广东 Television. My question is for Chen Xiwen. Primarily, in his report on government's work, said that we need to introduce the collective rural land and the pilot program of the reform of rural land. And in terms of the rural land transfer, what should we take into consideration? Now, there are some concepts which people endow different interpretations. For example, just now you have mentioned the transfer of rural land. What is the relationship between the two? Different people have different understanding. My understanding is that just now you said the increase of farmers' income and the reform of the homestead of farmers. Now the central government has released documents, and they have selected 33 regions to launch the pilot program, and those programs concern the reform of the current provisions. And the State Council have asked the Standing Committee of the MPC to adjust the implementation of those provisions. Now they are ready, those pilot programs are ready to be launched, and the timetable is from now to 2017. And now some provisions will be suspended, and at that time we will launch a comprehensive evaluation to see whether they are more suitable to our actual needs. If that is the case, then we need to revise the current provisions. But if the review tells us that there will be even more problems, then we will resume the current provisions. Those are the three land reform measures. The State Council and the CPC Central Committee has announced the number 77 document, which has made some specific arrangements. And just now, you have talked about the land transfer in China. In the current academic field and the theoretical field, people think that this is mainly about the right to operation and use of land, and the land will be leased to other people. This is the transfer of land right. And now the Central CPC office and the State Council office said that we need to promote the transfer of land rights and the orderly use of land. In order to promote the transfer of rural land, we know that a lot of rural workers migrated to urban areas. As a result, their land was left unattended. So the land will be transferred to other people. Now, we believe that the effects of our measures have been emerging, and nationwide we are carrying out the determination and registration of land nationwide. Now there are 3 provinces, the province of Shandong, Anhui and Sichuan, and they are the provinces where the pilot programs are carried out. As far as I know, more than 90% of those county-level units are carrying out those projects, and 1/3 of them are carrying out the pilot projects. And there is 340 million mu of land has the certificate, and under this context, the transfer of rural land has been accelerated. According to the statistics of relevant departments, by the end of June this year, the total area of the transferred land is more than 880 mu, and accounting for 22.8%. And there are more than 60 million rural households which has transferred part or all of their land to other people. And so this process has been carried forward continuously. Now, we need to avoid a situation where people just do it for a short period of time. Because if farmers can have higher income, then they are willing to transfer the land to others. But if they do not have higher income, then they should not be deprived of the right to retain their land. So after the 3rd plenum of the 18th CPC Central Committee, the central government has said that the land of the right must be divided into 3 branches on the basis of stabilizing the rights of the land. We need to add some vitality into this process. Then on this basis, our farmers can transfer their land with rewards, and they can rest assured in doing so. A few days ago, according to the statistics, we can see that now the urbanization rate has reached 54.77%, which means that more than 45% of our people are still living in rural areas. This is about 620 million people. If it is impossible for them to migrate to urban areas within a short period of time, so for a long time in the future they will still have to live in rural areas. So how to evaluate the current transfer process of rural land? Different people have different judgments. My own understanding is that, according to the report, in last year, our number of migrant workers which have migrated to other provinces is more than 160 million. And the total number of our farmers is about 500 million. So now the area of transferred land is about 28.8%. So the 2 set of figures match each other. With the development of urbanization, and as long as we provide some legal protection for the transferring of land and let farmers make their own decisions, then I believe that our farmers will also develop a moderate scale of economy. But if we do it too rashly, then this will be against our intention. Thank you.
Since time is limited, now we allow you to ask the last question.
对，戴帽子。
谢谢主持人。
Thank you.
谢谢各位委员。我是来自美国侨报的记者。我的问题是，其实现在相对于中国今年
，My question is about China's economic slowdown. President Obama was quite happy with American employment growing. Now China has aimed to build one belt, one road. Some people call it a Chinese version of Marshall Plan. This is an external plan. How does the plan of one belt, one road influence China-U.S. relationship? What's the question? Anyone willing to answer this question can answer it. Which one do you want to answer this question? Professor Li Yining. Shanghai FTZ has accumulated rich experience. The key is institutional innovation, so that we can copy more models that can be spread to other regions. The Maritime Silk Road and the Silk Road Economic Belt are influenced by Shanghai FTZ. In this process, we should pay attention to 3 points. The first, we should attach equal importance to trade and investment. We shouldn't focus merely on either trade or investment. We should pay attention to specific circumstances. Second, in this process, China should play its unique role. For example, in terms of the Silk Road Economic Belt, we should build many infrastructures along this economic belt. With sound infrastructure construction, it can allow the smooth transportation along this belt. Infrastructure construction is key to maritime Silk Road as well. Third, in this process, we should have a better cooperation with the countries along the road and the belt, and trust each other better. This is important. I noticed a new phenomenon recently. We know that through Hong Kong is the best route to Europe. But now I find Chongqing is the best route because we can rely on Yangtze River, a golden waterway. We can lower costs by a large margin if we follow the Yangtze River Golden Waterway towards Western Europe. It doesn't mean the Lianyungang is not an important part. It has a larger transportation capacity than Chongqing. We still have much experience to learn. First, it is imperative for us to harbor mutual trust and sincerity, so that one belt, one road can be much more successful. Thank you, Mr. Li Yining. I want to thank all of you for your support to this press conference. The last question goes to Hong Kong press.
Thank you very much, because this opportunity is very precious. My question is directed for Mr. Chang. We know that Citigroup is a very large financial corporation. I'd like to ask you, what is your comment on the future of Hong Kong, and how can Hong Kong correspond to China's development and continue to raise its position as an international financial center? Please tell us your media affiliation with Shanghai Zhongping News Agency. Thank you for your question. Maybe the reason why you raised this question to me is that our corporation has been moved to Hong Kong and we went public in Hong Kong. And this year, in the CPPCC press conference, Some of our people are discussing about our cooperation, and generally speaking, I think since we have come to Hong Kong, that Hong Kong is our home. We hope that our cooperation could make more contribution to Hong Kong. And Hong Kong has free trade, and it has abundant special talents. It has very excellent systems which is suitable for commerce and trade. So we are full of confidence in Hong Kong's future. Thank you, Mr. Chang. That is the end of the press conference. Thank you very much.